Welcome to Biztechasia Technology Show. Our guest for today is Prakash Gurumoorthy. He's the General Manager for APAC at VTEX. VTEX is the enterprise digital commerce platform for brands and retailers looking to build a future-proof digital commerce strategy. Now, to tell us more, welcome to the show, Prakash.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure connecting with all of you.
Now, Prakash, it's not common at all for companies from South America to come across to Asia in the tech space. So for a start, could you share with us a little bit more about VTEX and its origins in Brazil?
Absolutely. VTEX is one of the premier software as a service digital commerce platforms for enterprise brands and retailers. What VTEX provides is nothing but creating a unified commerce strategy for their brands, creating their online B2B or B2C stores, executing their orders across multiple channels, or creating a marketplace for different from different sellers or merchants. VTEX has been in the game now for the last 20 years in the business. It is a Brazilian company at heart. It was co-founded by Mariano and Geraldo. And we had many big milestones. We started work with Walmart Brazil. We started work with Carrefour. These are all significant big transaction digital platforms that VTEX empowered. One of our biggest milestone was actually listing our company in NYSE last year, and that paved the way for us to become a very global company. We are today headquartered in London, with a strong presence in Brazil, Latin America, North America, EMEA, and APAC, right? So that's a little bit of history about VTEX. And as a company, we are also a leader in the IDC digital commerce platform market space. We are also a visionary in Gartner for 3 years in a row in 2020, 2021, 2022. We are also voted as one of the top 3 platforms as per Gartner Peer Insights and also as per Unified Commerce Survey, right? So these are some of the analyst recognitions for the platform, but the future is looking boundaryless.
Okay, so you're a New York Stock Exchange company, but you're new to Asia.
Yes.
Tell us about what your Asian footprint looks like today.
Excellent. So today, if you look at it, VTEX serves more than 2,400 customers globally with over 3,200 active online stores. It's a very interesting statistic because it's not just about a single customer. A single customer can have multiple online stores because we are a SaaS platform. We are a multi-tenanted SaaS platform, which means you can have a multi-site using VTEX. So you could actually use the same environment and you could go live in Mexico, you could go live in Singapore, you could go live in India, you could go live in Romania, and so on and so forth. So given the fact that we today have over 2,400 customers, including Sony, Whirlpool, Walmart, Stanley Black & Decker, Nestle, Mondelez, Unilever, and the likes, our Asia strategy is quite clear. We are already proven today in the world stage in terms of executing to enterprise clients, and 84% of our revenue comes from enterprise clients. So our strategy in APAC was very clear that when we listed ourselves in NYC last year, we kind of made a commitment to kind of come to APAC, because at the end of the day, it's not just about being present in LATAM, Brazil, Eastern Europe, and North America, right? We need to kind of expand to this side of the world. And Mariano was very clear that it's not about selling VTEX to APAC, but it's about managing our reputation across APAC as well, across APAC customers. So for us, it's about time to grow. It's also about our reputation. So we started off with our customer experience team, which is all about handling the customers during the implementation of the digital platform, and also handling the key digital metrics after you go live, which is orders, traffic, and conversion rate. So our customer experience team will look at those metrics and they will handhold the customers, and our growth team will look at localization. So we started off with customer experience and growth team in Southeast Asia. We kept our base in Singapore. We have a solid team now in Singapore catering to Southeast Asia, ANZ, and India for customer experience and growth. Then this year, we started off the sales and marketing teams, right? Which is having a country head for Australia, which is Robert Kane. We had a country head for Southeast Asia, which is Pablo. And we are also kind of going to invest in India now with a new country head, right? And the goal is in phase 1, we will capture Southeast Asia, ANZ, India. And then in phase 2, we'll go to Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And today it's opportunistic, but we'll go in a staggered manner. One small point that I wanted to note in a proud manner, we already have launched Whirlpool India, which is already making revenue in the Indian market. We launched Motorola India. We launched Stanley Black & Decker B2B stores in Asia. We have launched KitchenAid in Singapore. And we are currently working with a B2B marketplace in Thailand, Indonesia, and a couple of fashion stores in Australia, and consumer goods stores in the region. So we take a lot of pride late in the market, but still we have kind of captured quite a number of customers and launched the sites, right? So that's what we stand for.
Prakash, what is really interesting from what you've just said is the fact that customer experience and growth teams came first. A lot of times when a company sets up in Asia, they set up the first offices in Singapore, and the first people that are hired are salespeople, which is a normal thing to do. You're going to get revenue first. So it's quite an interesting philosophy that you've taken the approach of making sure that you've got good support locally in the region before then, and understanding the market probably and localization, and then investing in the sales team. So that was quite an interesting takeaway from what you just said. The other interesting takeaway, as I did my research, was your go-to-market strategy. You have a two-tiered go-to-market strategy. You work with technology companies and you work with digital agencies as well. Tell us a little bit more about your go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, so today, if you look at it, I think as we look at how we have succeeded in other regions, right? We have different phases. We call it discovery regions. We call it acceleration regions. But if you look at other regions, what we have been quite successful is our industry focus. While we don't openly advocate that like other companies, but we are very strong in many industries like, consumer goods, discrete manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, electronics, and, banking and financials, on creating marketplaces and things like that. So our go-to-market strategy is pivoted on 4 pillars, right? The first one is doing verticalized sales, right? Our CRO, Santiago, is very clear that we should look at verticalized sales, right? And we are also very clear on architecture selling, right? We don't want to kind of come in and just do a fast-paced selling where we come in and go out. We want to kind of look at the current architecture. We want to look at the to-be architecture. We want to look at the integration. We want to look at the assumptions for that architecture, build the POC, and then sign up the customer, because there's no ambiguity between like what you look at and what you see today and what you see tomorrow, right? So that's the second go-to-market strategy. The third is partnerships, as you rightly observed, Brian, which is like, how do we partner with digital agencies? How do we partner with large system integrators? How do we partner with consulting firms? Because today consulting firms have a CX team, and the big five also have entered the digital team. So how do we have these different levels of partnerships where we are looking at enabling that, and digital agencies who actually get 100% of their revenues through digital commerce are a big focus for us. So that's the third pivot. And the fourth pivot is, how do we look at marketing as an enabler rather than looking at the front runner, right? So how can we do that as an enabler? So we do these thought leadership events. And we do kind of look at doing some innovation, because we do have a PaaS platform, which is called VTEX.io, where we encourage our clients to create these innovation experiments, right? And we learned that from Amazon, where you can succeed in digital only by actually experimenting and failing, right? You have to be open to failure. You have to be open to experimenting, and that's something that we are very proud to say. As a SaaS company, we do have that PaaS layer, which is VTEX.io, where brands can actually experiment and kind of innovate.
Okay, speaking of innovation, tell us then, how have you helped brands innovate? And share with us some success stories.
Absolutely. Thank you. There are many brands. So one brand that comes to my mind is Bank of Colombia in Latin America, where it's actually a bank. It's one of the leading banks there, and they have created a marketplace. So you would think that, why does a bank create a marketplace, right? And a bank one of the largest bank creating an auto marketplace and a real estate marketplace, right? And that's quite interesting, because that's not the core business. But I didn't meet the executives of Bank of Colombia, and it was a great innovation for them, and they're also looking at building BNPL platform in VTEX.io. So all these are enabled because we are just not a rigid SaaS platform. We offer that what you call PaaS layer along with the SaaS platform, so you could actually build and experiment on multiple dimensions, and you could run it. So Bank of Colombia case study is a very successful case study, because they are interlocking the customers across the auto and real estate in the region, and they're also building a new vehicle whereby they could kind of connect up in a customer 360-degree manner. And this case study got featured in MIT Digital Transformation Review. So this is just one example. Like that, there are several examples, but this kind of gives you that flavor of how our platform enables brands to innovate and experiment.
Okay, now Prakash, I want to zoom in back on Asia Pacific again, because in 2021, basically APAC is the largest market for retail e-commerce in the world, just under $3 billion US. So it's the market that everyone is looking at. Of course, that's why a Brazilian company comes all across the world to take advantage of this growth. What are the key factors do you think are the driving forces behind e-commerce growth in the region?
Interesting question, and I like to split it in two parts. So one is, what is the landscape today, right? What is the e-commerce landscape? And as you know well, Brian, the landscape is quite dynamic, and also what are the trends that are. So, my favorite statement, which I've taken it from Jeff Bezos, is the game has just begun for e-commerce. Even though we say, like, statistically, there are many figures, right? We say Southeast Asia has got 440 million internet users, and out of 440 million, 60% are online shoppers, and there are many metrics as per eMarketer. Indonesia tops in terms of retail e-commerce sales, along with Singapore, and it's 28% in 2022, which is awesome, right? Because the Southeast Asia, the region, is growing quite well between Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and Philippines, and things like that. And out of which, Singapore is one of the largest e-commerce markets, right? Because there is a great digital penetration. There, the sector is quite active, and the digital sales growth is quite good across retail, banking and finance, and things like that. So it's a no-brainer that post-pandemic, all the companies across Southeast Asia have realized, and this better than me, have realized that digital is no more a sort of a line item that they can ignore, right? It's one of the primary boardroom agenda, and customer experience is a boardroom agenda, right? How do you kind of enable? And today, I know for a fact that a lot of brands have put digital as a business transformation goal. It's just not a digital transformation. They call it business transformation. And they look at multiple aspects. They look at what is their outlook in the next 5 years. They look at how they look at revamping supply chain and operations. They look at how they acquire customers. I'm one of the advisors, digital advisors for a Thailand retail giant. And I know that when we were working very closely with them, we were not just looking at implementing an e-commerce platform. We were looking at what is the business transformation that we are looking at? How do we revamp the supply chain? How do we revamp the backend, operations and fulfillment? How do we look at customer acquisition costs? And how do we look at organization structure? Are you ready internally with the skills that is required to run an operation of this effect, right? So we were looking at all those 4 angles, and I know Dennis Koo, who is one of the expert in banking in Southeast Asia and Singapore recently, he also posted a similar infographic which highlighted all these 4 aspects. So we see that trend coming up. So companies are very focused, and I'm very positive about it. But if you look at some of the trends, right, like one of the key trends that we see is the same, which is because today the number of channels are increasing, and today there are about 15 channels of record. A customer can come from the web, a customer can come from the mobile, a customer can come from a call center, a customer can come from a billboard, a customer can come from a gaming app, a customer can come from a IoT device, a customer can come from a printed brochure. So we call it as channels, right? So today a customer can come from multiple channels. And a customer need not buy from one channel. He can look at, so the path to purchase is not linear. The path to purchase is very fragmented. So you come from one channel, you don't buy in that channel, you go to the other channel, you don't buy in the channel, you go to the other channel, and you might buy in that channel.
So, and Prakash, this is why you have this whole debate around online to offline and offline to online, isn't it? Because in one channel you have showrooming, but the purchase is done at the other channel.
Exactly. Totally. You got it. So, there's a interesting challenge for brands as well as companies like VTEX, which is how do you provide a consistent and a seamless experience across multiple channels? How do you capture data across multiple channels? How do you ensure that you do the right personalization across multiple channels and things like that? So I would like to rephrase that it's not about multi-channel or omni-channel. It's about your omni-channel and multi-channel readiness, which is a key trend. So you might be ready in 2 channels. Maybe you are ready in stores and web, but you might not be ready in other channels. So how do you kind of like, I'll say that's one of the big trend, which is your multi-channel and omni-channel readiness. In the same light, one example I'd like to give is also how do you take in key trends, like we just saw Meta having a partnership with one of the largest retailer in India, whereby you could actually do personalized live WhatsApp shopping, right? So the entire catalog of the retailer is on WhatsApp in Meta, and I can actually access the full catalog, which has got more than 5,000 SKUs or whatever. And even my grandmother can shop because I just purchased it, and it's quite easy. So you can just select and you can do a WhatsApp payment. It's fast, and you know the delivery option, and you know when it's going to come, and you can actually rate after it comes. So everything is in WhatsApp. It's quite, you don't even need to go to the website, or you don't need to do anything, right? It's basically 6 clicks and you're done. You don't need to worry. So how do you kind of leverage those technology shifts by hyperscalers like Meta and Google and the likes, right? So I see that as trend number 1, which is how omni-channel, multi-channel readiness. The second trend that I see is quite interesting, and that always being a passionate digital person, I always love it, in the sense, recently I read a eMarketer Insider Intelligence report, which actually said, what's next for e-commerce growth? And the beauty of it is they said some of it are spicy predictions, some of it are extra hot predictions, and some of it are medium predictions. Okay,
Okay.
so the spicy prediction by eMarketer was actually, they say that buying cars online will become the biggest e-commerce sales category by the end of the decade, because they believe that today the automobile sector has got the highest potential for e-commerce, but it's got low penetration, right? So today it's all about looking at test drives, and used cars actually has come in, right? If you look at markets like India, it's quite big. There are many unicorns which actually sell used cars online, and you could actually book a car, new car also online directly, and you could get it done in like 5 clicks or 6 clicks. Everything is an ecosystem. You can get a mortgage, you can get a loan, you can get the vehicle check. So you have very clear purchase journey between new car and used. So that's one interesting prediction, which is on the auto sector, right? And the auto spare parts, which is VTEX is seeing a lot of demand in that area, which is how do you look at consolidating the spare parts, not just for the traditional industry, but also for electric vehicles, right? How do you look at building a market? The second medium prediction is returns, right? Today, if you look at a standard problem, right? Returns is a huge issue for brands, because a lot of consumers return back, and it's cart abandonment, right? So how do you kind of convert that from a problem to a solution, right? You know, that's an area, there's a lot of research that's going on, and how do you kind of ensure that you reduce the returns rather than focusing on getting new customers, focus on reducing returns, because, you know, there you actually kind of make more money. The last one, you will laugh at it, which is like extra hot prediction, which is e-commerce will be drone delivered, right? Which is kind of very futuristic, but the prediction is all about, you know, there are hygiene things like prescription food, regular day-to-day needs, which need not be worked upon. You just kind of pack it, and, like, you know, it should be. So this is you know, I see you smiling. This is one pivot from and it's good, because you always need to keep one leg in the current and one leg in the future. You know, nobody would have thought 5 years back, you know, the extent of mobile phone buying or WhatsApp buying, right? But today it's a reality. So we can't just dismiss it and say, hey, oh, you know, that's not going to happen, right? You know, you just need to keep one leg in present and one leg in the future.
No, Prakash, actually what it's all about is that I was smiling because, you know, people would think drone deliveries are far ahead of the curve. Actually, drone deliveries are already happening today in China and
Exactly.
the US and stuff. So it's already today's technology.
Right. Exactly. I was just preempting that, because I know some of the customers whom I have interacted, it's a mixed bag, right? Some of them say, yeah, it's like, it's a reality, but some of them laugh it out, right? Like it's interesting. The third pivot in trends is the evolution of social commerce, and I'm not going to talk about Pinduoduo in China or the influence that it has on social commerce. Today, it's a known fact that you need to have a social commerce strategy. How do you leverage social channels like Instagram or social commerce platforms, and how do you kind of influence your brand, and how do you use social influencers? But I will also talk about the rise of certain futuristic things which are quite interesting. So today we see the advent of virtual influencers or CGI influencers, right? So we see people, we see Miguela Sosa, we see, like, you know, Roxy, we see Lucy. You know, these people are virtual humans. Right? But they have a huge following on Instagram, and they influence, because it's the rise from cult to mainstream, and South Korea is leading the pack. But the idea is, you know, recently there was a first live interview with a virtual influencer, right? You know, it came in July. It was a live stream, and it was a live interview that happened, right? So it's getting into mainstream. and also about deep fake, right? Like, because if you look at America's Got Talent, we had one of the 11 finalists was a deep fake, right? Yesterday, this happened 2-3 days back. So how do you kind of look at virtual influencers, which is kind of the social commerce angle, right, which is getting mainstream? And the last one is very close to VTEX, which is actually a very practical trend which we see, which is about live streaming and live shopping or live commerce, right? Because live shopping, live commerce is gaining a lot of popularity in APAC, and as per VTEX, as per our co-CEO Mariano, he says that it will represent over 30% of the US commerce revenue in the next 5 to 10 years, because the video consumption is going to grow. And in fact, we have customers like Avon, which is actually a VTEX customer, where along with their door-to-door operations, they will actually leverage video to offer a personal shopper, experience, right? And this is enabled by live shopping. So if you look at concierge commerce, conversational commerce, one-to-one interaction, live shopping, these all improve the loyalty. You can't. It's very tough to buy a piece of jewelry sitting at home if you don't have live shopping, right? So it's very important to kind of create that. And interestingly, this is actually a module in VTEX. You can just enable it just by a click of a button, right? You can like just like that you can do. So I'll just pause now, because I kind of gave a relational answer in terms of the landscape, the trends, and what is happening. But finally, I would like to crystallize and say that the game has just begun. Right? Again, I want to go back and say it's just starting, right? There's so much to do.
Prakash, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been really educational.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Prakash Gurumoorthy, the General Manager of Asia Pacific at VTEX on Biztechasia show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It will also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thank you very much for tuning in.